small deeds. وَإِن تَكُ حَسَنَةً يُضَاعِفْهَا. Right? Allah says even if you do something small, Allah will multiply it. You might not think much of it, but if you become more mindful when you're making wudu, your salah is going to be better. If you just take this little small step, you're going to notice something, your consciousness of Allah has changed. If you start just being mindful that you're walking into your home with the right foot and you're making a dua. Small little deed takes you less than 5 seconds to do that, but it might actually have a multiplied effect on your consciousness and your awareness of Allah. When you're getting in the car and you're making dua for travel, right? A masnoon dua for travel, if again, 10 seconds or less, you can make that dua. But it's going to be hard for you to start the car and go somewhere Allah doesn't want you to go if you made that dua first. You understand? So small elements of dhikr, what do? They bring about the taqwa of Allah. Small things add up. And when you start getting rid of those small things, one by one, you're like, that's not fard, I don't have to do it. It's not mandatory. I'm not kafir if I don't do it. Fine, you're not kafir. You're not non-Muslim. You didn't sin technically, but you know what you're doing? You're diluting taqwa. You're diluting the awareness of Allah. I'm not mentioning Him as much anymore. I'm not thinking about Him as much anymore. And when I'm not thinking about Him as much, in my conversations, I might notice that I start talking about people a lot more. Or I notice that I'm using foul language a lot more. I'm noticing that I'm maybe laughing at others a lot more. I've become more cruel, I've become meaner. I'm generous a lot less. I'm grateful a lot less. I contemplate a lot less. So the mind is a strange thing, right? The more you make it aware of something, the more it thinks about. Kids that are watching TV shows or YouTube series or whatever day and night, or they're gaming, they're even gaming in their dreams. And they wake up picking up from where they left off. There's a save point on the hard drive of your PS5 or your PS4 or your Switch, and there's a save point in your brain already. And you're like, next time I'm gonna get this boss this way. You wake up with that dhikr, right? It's because you've programmed yourself with it. So what might we learn from that on the side of al-arham? Al-arham means all of our relationships. There are small things that you and I can do in our relationships that annoy each other. A wife can do very small little things. Every time you hear her do it or see her do it, you're like, but you just do, and you just keep going, right? And just like when you don't remember Allah properly, and you don't do these small dhikrs, over time the heart starts getting harder and harder. These small annoyances that the husband does towards the wife or the wife does towards the husband, over time, what does it do? It starts distancing their hearts. They're still living in the same home. They still fulfill all of their responsibilities. They're still raising the kids together. There's still all of those things are going on. But emotionally, slowly but surely, because of small things, like she always laughs at me when I does this, or he always says that when I do this, or he's always commenting on this or this, and she doesn't bring it up, and she doesn't say anything. I'm just going to have sabr, and this sabr eventually becomes, I don't like him, he's so annoying. And in fact, when the husband says, hey, I'm going on a trip for 2 days, inside of her heart, she's like, takbir. Like, I'm so happy that he's gone for 2 days. I don't have to put up with those habits. Like there's the absence of the loved one should cause distress, should cause sadness. But what's happened over time, because of these small acts of insensitivity, one to the other to the first, that they actually celebrate being far apart from each other. They're happier when they're not around. Or you're really happy when he's not home. You're like calling your friends, you're happy, you're smiling, and the moment he walks in, you're like, oh, alaikum salam. And your energy disappears because he's here, right? Or she does the same thing to you, or you do the same thing to her. And you could do this towards your children. Small things that pull siblings apart from each other. Small things that pull parents and children apart from each other. So it's the first thing that we learn about taqwa on the spiritual side. Our taqwa to Allah is small deeds. When you and I become mindful of them, they add up. And they start affecting bigger things. So a small thing, for example, could be changing your sleeping habits, me changing my sleeping habits. Hey, every time I sleep late, I miss Fajr. So I'm going to start sleeping earlier. I'm going to try to take care of my schedule and make sure that by this time I'm out. I'm going to put that in my, make that my routine. Now when you do that, it has an effect on your morning. And when you have that effect, you feel different when you caught your Fajr. You prayed on time. It felt good. You got to make dua to Allah. You begged Allah, Ya Allah, don't let me miss another Fajr again. Ya Allah, give me this gift. Make me better and better. So like these small things, they add up. in life and in our relationship with Allah. So that's the first. The second thing, let's take a little bit of a bigger step. The taqwa of Allah can also be, in our, our thoughts. Allah is directly connecting in the Quran mindfulness of Allah and spiritual awareness of Allah. He's directly connecting it with the way that we think. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Why don't you think? Why don't you ponder? Why don't you think deeply? Well, and Allah even says about us, says to us that there are things we can say that are offensive to Allah. كَبُرَ مَقْتًا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَن تَقُولُوا مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. You can say things about Allah that you don't know of. So there's thoughts and there's speech. So I'll make a quick comment about thoughts and speech. You see, what happens is, when we turn to Allah with taqwa, we make dua to Allah for forgiveness. When we pray to Allah, we have to be aware of our own mistakes, right? I have to be aware of my flaws. I have to be aware of my sins. And I know there's no secrets between me and Allah. Allah knows how messed up I am. Allah knows all of my failures. Allah knows all of my flaws. I can't pretend in front of Allah and say, Ya Allah, I'm not that bad. Allah knows exactly how bad. And I know that Allah knows. So I have an unfiltered conversation with Allah, and I'm very real about myself. And I don't want Allah to judge me based on one mistake, or based on even 100 mistakes. Ya Allah, I know I've made 100 mistakes. Ya Allah, you know I made 1,000 mistakes. But you know that in my heart, I want to make a change. You know that in my heart, I'm going to try my best never to make those mistakes again. You have this, if you truly have taqwa, you have a confession to Allah, and you don't pass judgment on yourself. You're real about yourself, right? You're real about yourself. But if you gave up on yourself, think about that for a moment. If you gave up on yourself and said, you know what, I've made way too many mistakes, I messed up anyway. If you give up on yourself, then it's impossible for you to have a real conversation with Allah. In fact, you'll avoid it. What is the point of me talking to Allah now? What is the point of me praying to Him now? I'm already messed up. It's not like He's going to forgive me. So even the taqwa of Allah and what results from the taqwa of Allah, the dua to Allah, the prayer to Allah, all of that cannot happen if I'm not real about myself and vulnerable before Allah. Now let's bring that to our relationships. What happens in our relationships sometimes is, if I made a mistake, that's because I was really mad. Or, you did this, that's why I made this mistake. Or it's understandable. It happened. I messed up. Fine, I messed up. It happened. But if your spouse makes a mistake, if your child makes a mistake, they always do that. That's how they always are. You're not looking at their mistake, you're looking at their heart behind the mistake, and you're saying, this person, the reason they spoke like this is because they're filled with hate, they're filled with arrogance, they're this way, they're this way, they're this way. I've already judged them, their intentions, not their action. I've already judged their intentions. When it comes to myself, I only want somebody to judge my action and never my intention. I messed up, but that wasn't my intention, and it makes it a lot more innocent. But when somebody else messes up in the relationship, the first thing we go after is their intention. This is who they really are. In law, you have this concept of innocent until proven guilty, right? So what we often do in our families is we become so used to the people in our family, we don't say it, but it's in our mindset, guilty until proven innocent, actually. So they're already walking around guilt. Whatever comes out of their mouth, you're like, I knew you were going to say that. What a surprise you said that. I know exactly how you are. This is the only thing you can't say. And even when they say something good, you assume something bad must be behind it, because you've already assumed that they're guilty all the time, right? You know what this does? This makes me unaware of my own self, and I don't want to judge them the way I would judge myself, right? And this is the best way to destroy a relationship. By the way, we make the same assumptions about Allah sometimes. Allah is not going to forgive me. Allah doesn't care about me. And what does that do? It destroys your taqwa. It destroys your taqwa. And if I want to beg Allah for my forgiveness, and I see myself, even if I've made many mistakes, if I see myself as someone who's made those mistakes but regrets them and wants to turn back to Allah, I have to see the other the same way.